Russ, for you, this is the most special butterfly. Right off the
Okay.
Easter Sunday, this day that we celebrate every year, that is such an incredible celebration. It has such tradition around it. Something that we look forward to, something that we prepare for weeks and weeks and weeks. All very good. But sometimes I wonder that if in the preparation for all of the traditions that we do as a people, we sometimes forget that Easter is a real thing. It's something that actually happened in history. It was something that people experienced. As I was thinking about this day, really these 3 days, which are really one giant celebration, I was thinking about these two women in the gospel. What that Friday evening, that first Good Friday, must have been like for them. I doubt they slept much, if they slept at all. They probably tossed and turned all night, visions of what had happened that afternoon going through their heads over and over again. Remembering the terrible pictures of what they had seen. Disbelief, shock, crushing grief, and fear were probably all swirling around in their heads at the same time. And that next day, that Sabbath day, that Saturday, what that must have been like for them. If they went to the temple, which they may not have out of fear, I'm sure that they said the prayers from memory. But what must those prayers have been like? It must have felt like those prayers were falling on deaf ears. Where was Adonai, the Lord, in all of this? I think during those hours, all they were really thinking about was Sunday morning, when they could finally go and see the tomb. And the feeling that at least, if nothing else, they could be physically near him. And then they're given the message. Do not be afraid. Go and tell his brothers that they will see him again. And then Jesus meets them. And what is the message? The first thing that Jesus says to the first people he meets after his resurrection. Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers that they will see me. That they saw him in their fear. That's the message. That in fear and confusion and shock is most often where we see God the clearest. When was it in your life that you felt most afraid? What was the time in your life that you felt the most pain? And there's all sorts of things in our life that can bring us fear and pain and confusion. We worry about our future. How am I going to pay for my kids' tuition? How can we afford to do what we want to do as a family? How can we continue to keep doing this? The future makes us afraid. Where will I be 6 months from now, 2 years from now? Where will my children be in that time? Have you ever in your life been so afraid, so confused that you didn't know where to turn? The darkest time in my own life was about 17 years ago when I was stationed in a parish in the island of St. Lucia. A lot of people are like, yeah, that's really tough. You're stuck in St. Lucia in the Caribbean. Well, the Caribbean and I, St. Lucia and I, didn't really connect so well for lots of reasons I won't get into. But I remember one particular time I had been on vacation for a week, and it was a particularly beautiful time of being with family and friends. It was a really tough time for me in St. Lucia. I was on the flight back to the island. And it's about a 6-hour flight back there, not including sitting time at the airport. And I remember that being such a time of absolutely excruciating pain because I knew where I was not a good place for me for lots of reasons. And the thought of going away and leaving those that I love, going to a place that was extremely difficult and extremely lonely for me, was is to this day the single most painful day in my life. It seemed to never end. And the closer and closer I got to the islands, the worse it was. But I look back on that day 17 years ago, and if I had known the joy and the peace and the beauty of a marriage and a home and a family and a ministry that God had waiting, that God knew was on its way, if I had known, how different things would have been. But of course, in the pain of Good Friday, we cannot see the peace and the beauty waiting for us on Easter Sunday. But here's the thing. Sunday is always there. It may not be 3 days until you find that joy and that life again, but Sunday is always there. You see, as Christians, we sometimes make this mistake of seeing Easter as this thing, this holiday that we box into a 24-hour period. Easter is really a reality for all time and for all people. See, the resurrection of Jesus is a game changer. Everything is different now because we have Sunday. Yes, I know we always had Sunday. We always had the first day of the week. But what I mean is that by Jesus overcoming fear and betrayal and agony and death, and God bringing him and lifting him back to life, we now have a new promise. When death touches your life, believe me, as we all know, there are many, many different types of death besides physical. There's the death of a relationship, a marriage, a friendship, a part of your family. The death of a vision you have for your life. A direction you had hoped and believed you would go in that suddenly is gone. In the midst of all of that, there is something new waiting. When we are broken and afraid, when sickness and fear and doubt seem to be everywhere that you look, when we look at this world around us, mounting tensions, conflict, wars of words, nuclear arsenals being increased, rockets being tested, chemical weapons stockpiled, aircraft carriers, and strike groups being deployed. And we wonder, where will everything be in a year? Where will things be in 2 years from now? There is something new and holy waiting. You have Sunday. And Sunday is not a maybe. Sunday is a promise. Sunday is always there. You see, the resurrection is about God's power. God's power to bring life to one who seemed utterly destroyed and defeated and crushed. It's about God's power to get you out of the tomb, to move that rock and that boulder in your life that seems immovable. That's what the resurrection is about. God doing what seems absolutely impossible. That morning when the two women were going to the tomb, why were they going? Matthew's gospel says they were going to see the tomb. They were going because they were still in shock. They were still in disbelief. They were still in pain and just wanted to be near the one that they loved. Very similar to any one of us who goes to a cemetery to visit a grave. It's the same thing. But in between them, in between these two women and their hope, in between these two women and peace, in between these two women and the one they loved, was literally a boulder, a huge rock that was unmovable. But what happened? The two women showed up. They showed up at the tomb. And the power of God, the story records it as an angel, moves the stone back. This massive boulder is no longer suddenly there, gone like that. The thing that was blocking their path, that seemed impossible, was suddenly no longer in between them. These two women were invited to the tomb that morning out of their love for Jesus. And they showed up. The disciples were invited by the angel and by Jesus first to go. Tell my brothers, go to Galilee, and there they will see me. They would see Jesus, but they had to show up. They had to say yes to the invitation. This day is a beautiful, beautiful day. Inside this building and out. You look at these beautiful flowers around us. Full churches. I mean, come on, folks. We're in the chapel. That's pretty good. We're almost back in the classroom. This is beautiful. Warm summer weather today. Easter dresses, Easter egg hunts after church, Easter dinner with the family. I love this. I love that all of you are here. But this is all superficial. Unless we are in an ever-deepening relationship with our God. It is beautiful and it can inspire us, it can move us and make us think and invite us to God. But this isn't the goal. The Spirit is. These flowers in a few months, as beautiful as they are today, will eventually wither. The beautiful smell of the flowers in the church will eventually fade. In a few weeks, we will switch from Easter white to green again. Ordinary green. The Easter eggs that are dyed will be eaten. The dinner will be cleaned up. And then what? Then what? We cannot experience what Easter means. God's power to bring resurrection in your life if we are not in relationship with Him. Because if we don't have God in our life, then Friday is the end. That's all there is. Jesus' message to the women. Don't be afraid. Tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me. As I've pondered on these words the last few days, I feel as if God is telling me to say the same thing to everyone gathered here on this day. Do not be afraid. Sisters and brothers, go, and you will meet Him. But go where? See, in the gospel reading today, they're told to go to Galilee. Now, Galilee is where it all began. It's where it all began for the disciples and Jesus. Jesus was inviting them back to the beginning. He was inviting them back to firsts. You are invited back to the beginning. We were all very young. We were completely dependent on our parents. We knew it, and we were okay with it. That's where we're being invited to. But this time, to God. Surrender everything completely in your life to the Spirit. In the quietness and stillness of prayer, give it over. You are invited to go and you will see him. You are invited, whether I see your face here every single week, once a month, once a year, or if I have met you for the very first time today, you are invited by him. Show up. Show up. Say yes to the invitation. Because when you meet him, when you meet Jesus Christ in your life in prayer, when you see him and you experience him, everything changes. Everything changes. I certainly would not call myself the best or the greatest prayer in the world. But this I can tell you. When I pray, when I rest in the Spirit and I give myself over to prayer, everything looks different. Everything looks different. The problems that I have seem so much easier. I may not have the answer to them, but I know I'll find it. The gifts that I have are so much clearer. Because that's what prayer does. Prayer helps you to see more clearly. It lets you know in no uncertain terms that you're not doing this on your own. That you don't have to find the answer. The answer will be brought to you. Remember, Sunday is always there. Always waiting around the corner. You are invited. You are invited to your Sunday. To know him. To have this boulder in your life moved like that. There is new life. Always new life. You are invited to it. Show up. Amen.
Amen.